Hi guys, welcome to the Art of Server. So this is going to be the first video in a new server build series for the Dell PowerEdge R410. So the previous series with the R710 seemed really popular, and so I thought you guys might actually enjoy another series like that, but this time with a different server. And I've had a lot of customers contact me about the R410, that they were trying to use this for whatever it is that they were building. And so I thought, okay, well, why not? Let's go ahead and do this, since I also happen to have a R410 available here. All right, so let's just introduce this machine to you guys a little bit. This is the Dell PowerEdge R410. It is a 4-bay system, and these are 3.5-inch bays. It's got dual socket layout, so there's 2 processors. 8 DIMMs total for memory expansion. There is one PCI slot that's a normal PCI slot for you to add a add-in card, but there's also a integrated PCI slot right beneath it, and we're going to get into that a little bit more because there's some special options we can have with that. Okay, so anyway, this is a 4-bay backplane. There's a SAS cable that goes to the riser that plugs that basically connects to that integrated slot right there. Now if you were to use a normal PCI card, you're going to want a different cable, and again, I'll get into those details and talk about those when we get there. There's also a front panel LCD, just like most Dell servers these days. This is integrated into this board up front here, which also serves as a USB controller. And I think that's what this black cable is. Basically, it goes connects the USB controller to the motherboard, and of course that drives the front 2 USB ports. But also there are 2 internal USB-A ports for you to use a USB flash drive as perhaps as a boot drive or something like that. And so we might actually attempt to use that. Okay, so if you watch the R710 series, you know that I had some problems with that when I first powered on that machine, and in particular the iDRAC module was broken or not working, and I had to replace it. And so actually I stole the iDRAC module from this server. So this server doesn't have a iDRAC Express module nor a enterprise module, and so one of the things I wanted to do with this machine was also get those installed. So I went ahead and bought some of those, hopefully in working condition. I don't know, I haven't actually tried these yet. I just received them, just took them out of the bags, and so we're going to try installing these today and see if that works. So I want to make sure that we get all these working first, because some of the things I'm going to do with the server, I'd like to be able to get on the iDRAC remote console in order to do a screen recording of what I'm going to do there. And so I want to make sure that these things work. So if you're not familiar, by the way, iDRAC is basically Dell's kind of out-of-band management system, and I don't remember what it stands for now, but the D is for Dell somewhere in there, like remote access controller. So it's like, I think it was like Dell remote access controller was the DRAC, and I don't know what the I was for anymore. But anyway, in order to enable that in an 11th gen Dell server, so that includes the R410, but also like the R710 and whatnot, you need one of these. You need at very minimum this little module that's called an iDRAC Express module, and this enables that functionality. But I think in this case there's some limited functionality, and you can't get the remote console app. And in order to get the remote console app and also a dedicated port for that, you need this iDRAC Enterprise module in addition to this. Okay, so a lot of times you might find used servers on eBay that only have the Express module, and you only need to buy this. But like I said, I actually stole the Express module out of this machine for the R710 series when I was trying to fix that. So I ended up buying both of these, and we're going to go ahead and install those today, and we'll see if we can get that working. All right, so this here is the fan shroud. We're going to remove that because the iDRAC Enterprise module goes right in the back here. So let's go ahead and make sure that all the cables are out of the way, and that should come right out. That's a little bit dirty. We're going to wipe that down later on just to make sure this is all cleaned up. And by the way, just as I did with the R710, Once this project or this video series is done, I will have available this server for sale. So if anybody would like to pick it up, that's already set up, as you'll see in this video series. After the video series is done, feel free to contact me, and we can arrange for you to be the new owner of this machine. All right, so the iDRAC Express module goes right over here. That's what this little slot is for, and this little blue connector is to, I guess, hold down the bracket here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So in order to do this, you basically stick this little tab into the slot and put the hole over the pin and just press down. And that's all there is to it to get the iDRAC Express module installed. Now we're also going to do the iDRAC Enterprise module. So that's this thing. And be careful not to, like, on this module, it actually says no push right here. I think I've seen somewhere it doesn't really warn you, but there's a little SD card slot right here, so you don't want to press down on that. You might end up squishing that thing. So, but anyway, this goes into the slot back here. Sometimes there's also a cover. I don't know if that's it, but that covers this hole if the iDRAC module, Enterprise module, was not there to begin with. So you might have to remove that if you are doing this on your own server. Now I seem to have moved this bracket here. All right, let's see if I can put this in. All right, again, just align the holes with the blue pins, and see if we can get it down. There we go. All right, and just press down on that blue dot firmly to make sure that it's fully seated and properly in place. So hopefully that's good to go installation wise. I still have to power it on to make sure these things all actually work, but we'll figure that out in a moment here. One thing I noticed, and the reason why I brought these pliers along today, was I've noticed some of these fans, they just kind of sit loose like that. You can see that rattle. Now I don't think they actually make a lot of rattling noises when they're running, but I just don't really like the fact that they're so loose in there. So I thought I would try to do something about that. So let's go ahead and remove these fans here. Now this one seems all right. This one doesn't have, it's maybe a little bit loose. All right, so let's go ahead and take those out. Yeah, this one definitely. So in this first part, just as we did in the R710 series, I'm just going to do some basic hardware setup, get things reset to default states so that we're starting from a known working state. All right, let's see. Yeah, these are also kind of loose. And then in the next series, after we get the hardware all kind of squared away, we'll start looking at storage and other, probably going to upgrade the processors as well. There's 32 gigs of RAM already in this machine. That might be enough for what we're going to do. And honestly, I'm not really sure what we're going to do with this machine yet. So it's a smaller machine than the R710, obviously, but I think this makes for a really great starter NAS, for example. All right, so I'm going to use these pliers. I'm just going to bend these brackets here just a tiny, tiny little bit to apply a little bit more pressure to the fans so they just don't rattle as much. Let's see if that, yeah, so that definitely is a firmer fit. Now if you're going to be doing this, just be careful. I don't know how you don't want to bend these little springs off. All right, that's a much more snug fit, and I kind of like that. That's the way I want them to be. Now, like I said, I wasn't necessarily hearing a lot of noises. I did power this machine on before, so I didn't hear a lot of fan rattling noises or anything like that. But I don't like it when things don't seem to fit right. Okay. So. Yeah, that's a much better fit. And unlike the R710, these fans, I mean, they are hot pluggable. You can pull them out while the system's running, but it's just not as well designed as the R710 one, where you basically can just pop it out very easily without having to disconnect any cables manually. All right, yeah, these are definitely in a much better fit right now. Let's see, that's going to be a little hard to grab this here. Let me try. Okay, maybe I'll just bend these guys a little bit forward there. All right. Yep, that's a much better, tighter fit there than it was before. So I think that's exactly what I want. Same thing on these two. Maybe also on this side just a little bit. All right. Okie dokie. So yeah, definitely a much more snug fit for all the fans, and that's just the way I like it. All right, let's go ahead and close that up. And yeah, this is kind of dirty. Let me go wipe this down. I'll be right back. Okay, so got a paper towel here. You can see it is a little bit dusty in here. We'll clean that out. It'll be just fine. It's otherwise in actually really good shape. Okay, let's go ahead and close this. And let's put all the cables back into their little cable routing hooks there. All right, so let me go ahead and plug power in, and then we'll fire this guy up and see if the whole iDRAC thing stuff, all the iDRAC modules and stuff like that work. Alright guys, I've got everything plugged in. The lid is off, so it's giving me a warning about that. Let me go ahead and put the lid back on. Okay, hopefully that will then go away in a few seconds here while I wait. Oh, there you go, it's gone. And let's pull out the keyboard. I've got this hooked up to the auxiliary input, and let's go ahead and power it on. Okay, so far so good. We're going to also go ahead and update all the firmwares and everything on this box once I get the iDRAC remote console up. Okay, so we have, this is the SAS6i-R host bus adapter that's in there in that integrated slot. We're actually going to find a way to use this. And I know a lot of you who are watching this might say, hey, well, hold on a second, that's a SAS1 host bus adapter. Isn't that pretty useless these days? And yeah, sort of, but there might be an advantage in actually using this, and I'll get to that in the next part when we talk about storage. Okay, so I'm gonna hit Control E here because, yeah, so it looks like we got the iDRAC 6 working. I'm gonna reset this to default. That might take a little while. And the other thing is I want to change the LAN parameters. Whoa, there we go. Yeah. Whenever the iDRAC resets, the BMC goes crazy and just fires up the fans until the iDRAC comes back online. But anyway, the default setting for the LAN parameters is usually like 192.168.0.120, and settings restored default. Okay, so account access, so I'm going to leave this all to its default settings. So if you haven't watched my other videos, if you're at the default settings, the root account for the iDRAC has the password Calvin, and so that's the default Dell account and password for these things. So if you ever buy a system that where there's already some user configuration in there, and you don't know how to, you obviously we won't know what the password is. If you reset the default and get rid of all those users, the default user is root and the default password is Calvin. Okay, so let's go to LAN parameters, and we have the dedicated slots or the dedicated ports, so that part is working. That's the iDRAC Enterprise allowing us to do that. And see, I'm going to use DHCP, so I'm looking for that here. Okay, yeah, so default iDRAC IPv4 setting is .120 in this range, and so we don't want that. I want it enabled, but I want to change this to DHCP. So can I do that? How do I change this? Or space to change. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you have to hit the space bar to change it. All right. And DNS, yeah, sure, let's do that as well. I'm not using IPv6, so I'll just skip all that. So I think that's all we need, and it should pick up a new IP address once I enable that. All right, escape. Wait, let's see. Did it actually take the setting? I hope it did. Yeah, it did. Okay. So escape, save changes, and exit. No boot device available. That's fine. I haven't installed anything that we can actually boot off of. So let's Alt Control Delete and just reboot the machine. I'm hoping that that'll trigger the iDRAC to pick up a new IP address. Mainly, I want to know what the iDRAC IP address is so that I can then remote into this machine and show you guys the rest of the stuff from a screen recorder. Alright, so we got the 216 DHCP address. Now that we know that, we can log into this machine remotely on the iDRAC. Alright, so let me go ahead and just close that off. Alright, so looks like the iDRAC Express module and Enterprise module seems to be working great. That's good news. And anyway, this is a relatively small server. It's obviously just a 1U machine. It's only got 4 drive bays, but you know, if you have large enough hard drives, this is still going to give you plenty of storage as a starter server. You got dual sockets, and there's at least 8 memory slots. So I don't remember the exact max memory configuration, but you know, even for a small hypervisor slash storage server, this is actually not bad as a starter. And these machines are also really, really affordable. I think this is even more affordable than the R710, and it's just a smaller form factor. So, you know, if you don't have a rack in your house, you know, you could lay this on its side under your desk or something like that. So it's just an easy way to get started without investing a whole lot into the server just yet. And you know, you could always later upgrade to something else. But anyway, let's go ahead and log into the iDRAC, and I'm going to put a USB drive in here so that I can that's loaded with the firmwares and BIOS updates and stuff like that, so that I can get this guy fully updated before we do anything else with it. All right, so let's see if we can log into that iDRAC. It's 216. All right, so let's go ahead and log in. And like I said, since we've reset the iDRAC, the default login is username root, and the password is Calvin. That's spelled C-A-L-V-I-N. Yeah, there we go. All right. So let's go to console and launch viewer. And this should give us the Java KVM application. Okie doke, and let's go ahead and power this machine on. Go over here to power management, power control, power on system, apply. Alright, there we go. Alright, so I have a USB drive with my CentOS 7 installation. That's the diagnostic USB that I use to flash HBA cards as well as like BIOS updates and stuff like that. So anyway, that's what's in there right now, so it should boot off of that. Let me go ahead and put that browser window down. So hopefully this should boot right up, and we'll get started on doing the firmware and BIOS updates and stuff like that. Actually, you know what? While that is booting up, I'll put it to the side here, and let me shrink this a little bit. I want to show you guys where to download the updates and how to find them and stuff like that. It is a little bit tricky. I've already actually downloaded everything that I need for this server on my USB drive, so I don't need to do that again, but I'm going to show you guys where to find it. So the first place you want to usually go is support.dell.com, and once you get here, you can see I already downloaded, so it says I recently viewed this. But if you don't have anything like that, you go to browse all products. We're talking about servers here, so click on servers, PowerEdge, rack servers, and look for the model. So we have a R410, so I'll click on that and go over to the drivers and downloads tab, and you can basically find almost everything you need here. And I say almost because there's a couple of drivers that are a little bit harder to find. And I'll also show you another way to find these downloads that's actually a little bit easier, except that it's missing something that this side has. So either way, you can't win with one or the other. You just kind of have to use a combination of both. So alright, in my case, I'm using Linux, Enterprise Linux, so I'm just going to pick Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6. If you are downloading some other for some other operating system, you probably want to pick one of the other ones. I'll go ahead and pick that. Alright, so you'll see that there's a bunch of downloads here that are now available. Apparently about 211 of them. Yeah, there's a lot. So
I'm not going to need all of those, but you can see that, like, for example, there's an urgent update for the BIOS to 1.14. So we're definitely going to need that, because I think earlier when we booted up, it had a much older version of the BIOS. So, you basically just click on download and, on this button, and just download one by one. In the previous video, I showed you guys how to update the firmware and BIOS with the lifecycle controller, and that was in a 12th generation Dell server. Unfortunately, that method doesn't work anymore with the 11th gen Dell servers, so that's not available if you're working on R410 or R710, as far as I know. Maybe someone's figured out how to get that to work, but I could not get that to work, and from what I've read, Dell officially will not support that anymore on that generation of servers. So you're really only left with this option of kind of manually downloading each update that you need, which is okay. It's not really a big deal, but anyway, so you can just go ahead and go through and find the updates you need and download them one by one. Okay, so now one thing that is missing here is if you click on network. And I talked about this in the R710 series as well, where I was looking for the I think it's a Broadcom NIC, the onboard 4-port Broadcom NIC firmware is really hard to find. And so here you'll find, like, drivers and release notes, and some mention that, like, the intellectual property for these cards have been transferred to QLogic or stuff like that, but nowhere to be found are the actual firmware updates. And in the R710 video, I kind of had to investigate and do my own Google searching to figure out where those firmwares are available on Dell's site. And I finally did find it, and by the way, that method still works, but I actually discovered another website that's actually really convenient for this kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you that site. I have it bookmarked here. So it's called PowerEdgeC.com, and I think this is just somebody's, I don't know if this is an official Dell site or somebody came up with this, but I think it just does a screen scrape of Dell's website and kind of consolidates all the download links and stuff like that. So up here are links to the various types or generations of Dell servers, from the 13th gen to 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, and 8th generation, and then the Power Vaults and the PowerEdge C systems. So if you, in our case, we're going to need the 11th gen. So we're going to click on PE11G firmware, and you'll see all the different servers listed here. And if you go down to R410, then here is the link of the latest BIOS updates for all the different platforms, between the Windows to, I don't know what normal is, but there's also the Linux update, which is what I'm going to be using. Anyway, you can download the same things that I downloaded from support.dell.com here as well. Now, one thing that's different and that's convenient about this site is that if you go down to network, okay, here they actually have the link to the latest network card firmware, and so it's easy to find this here. Apparently, whatever is generating these links is really good at finding that driver. So I found that this is the easiest way to find the latest and greatest, and you can see that this is actually a little bit newer than the version I found for the R710. So I think there was an update released not that long ago. But anyway, this is probably the easiest way to find the network driver, or sorry, the network firmware updates. Instead of trying to do Google and visiting the various links you find on Google to find it, this usually has the latest. Now, unfortunately, some of the updates listed here are also not the latest, and so you kind of still need to use the Dell, the original Dell site. And the one I'm talking about in particular is this lifecycle controller. So you'll notice the latest lifecycle controller is 1.7.5 here, and over here, if you go to lifecycle controller, for whatever reason, it thinks the latest is 1.6.5. 1.12. I don't know why that is, but anyway, so what I've done already is I've downloaded all the firmwares that I need for the R410, and I downloaded the lifecycle controller from this side, and I downloaded the network card firmware from this side, and just put them all together. So anyway, just wanted to show you guys where to find this. So I'll leave a link to the site poweredgec.com in the description of this video for your convenience. It's really great. Other than that lifecycle control, actually all the firmwares and BIOS updates and stuff like that are easily found here, and it works for multiple generations or multiple models of servers. I wish I had known this, by the way, when we did the video for the R710. That would have been a fairly easy way to find this stuff. But if you go back here, let's see, like I can click on 12th gen and I can find all the updates for the 12th gen models here as well. So let's say I have a R720 XD. Apparently there was another BIOS update just released this past January, so I probably should go apply that on my R720 XD. But anyway, as you can see, it's just very convenient to find the updates that you need, other than that lifecycle controller or legacy thing. So on the 12th gen, by the way, it does appear that it already has the latest lifecycle controller firmware stuff. So that one anomaly is really just with the 11th gen. So anyway, alright, so since I've already downloaded all these, I don't need to bother with that. Let's go ahead and log in. Let me minimize this window, and let's go ahead and log in here. Okay, I think I have it over here. Alright, so I've already downloaded everything like I said. Let's just, yeah, so these are all of the files, updates that I believe I need for this R410. Some of them, maybe I might not need them, I don't know. I don't know what versions are on this server. So anyway, one thing that I want to point out is when you download, especially on a Linux platform, when you download one of these updates, these kind of self-extracting scripts, they're going to download with read-write permissions, but because it's an executable script, you need to add the execute permission to these scripts, and you can do this one by one by simply doing chmod plus x on the file. In my case, I'm just going to use find to do that, so I'm going to do chmod plus x, and so this does a find starting from where I am. Because I have everything sorted in subdirectories, it's going to descend into those folders and find everything that is a file, and there's only the executable scripts here anyway, so I don't have anything else. And then I'll execute the command chmod plus x on each one of these files. Okay, and now if I do ls on all those files, you'll notice that everything now has a execute permission on it. Alright, so let's start with the the very first. Let's do the BIOS, and then after that I think we're going to reboot and we'll do the iDRAC. Yeah. Now when you do the iDRAC, note that since I'm connected to the iDRAC KVM, it's going to reset, so this connection is going to get severed. So I'm going to do that after the BIOS update. So let's go ahead and do this. And yeah, as you can see, the current version is 1.05, which is very old, and the current version is, or the latest version is 1.14. So let's go ahead and apply this by entering Y for yes and hit enter. So this is going to take a while. In the video I'll probably just fast forward through this, but I'm going to step away for a little bit and come back. Alright, looks like the update is done, and we're going to go ahead and reboot the system. Alright, there we go. now we see the BIOS revision 1.14.0, which is the one that we just applied. So that appears to be successful so far. We'll let the system boot up again and we'll continue applying the other updates. Let's go ahead and log in now. Oops, that's a mistype. Alright. So we've already applied the BIOS update. Let's go ahead and do the iDRAC at this point. So unfortunately it looks like it failed. I'm not really sure why. Alright, well, let's see. At this point, let me apply the BMC update. I'll reboot and maybe we'll try again. Let's see if that helps. And the BMC update is not working either. Well, you know what? I'm going to try a reboot and see if that helps here. But yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on, why that's not working right now. Let's go ahead and just do a reboot and well, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and shut down the machine and then I'll just restart it and see if maybe that might help. Alright, let's power on the machine again. Alright, so it's booted back up. Let's go ahead and try this again. Alright, so, you know, I'm going to try the iDRAC update again. And let's see how that goes. Alright, it apparently failed again. I'm not really sure. So I'm going to pause the video here and go kind of research this problem a little bit, see if there's a way to work around this. Alright guys, so I did a little bit of digging and yeah, it's probably that the iDRAC module, express module is bad and I might have to replace that. But one suggestion was to completely pull power, physically pull power from the machine to force the iDRAC to reset itself and then power it back on. So that's what I've done. I pulled the power, pressed the power button down for like 30 seconds to just let everything drain out, and then powered the system, plugged the power cord back in, and I booted up, and now I'm going to rerun that update. And hopefully, if it works, terrific. If not, I think the next step will be to replace the iDRAC Express module, which contains the flash. So let's see if this works. Alright, so it looks like this failed as well. Yeah, at this point I'm just going to replace the iDRAC Express module and see if that will solve the problem. Alright, so there's one more thing I want to try out. In my investigation of the error that we saw earlier where it failed to update to standby image, there was mention that basically if you're making a huge leap from an old version to the latest version, sometimes it doesn't seem to work. Although in the R410, I was looking back at that video and it looked like we had an older version. So I'm not really sure, you know, why it would be a problem on this server, but I thought, okay, well, let's at least give it a try. So I'm going to go download an older version of the iDRAC, probably in the 1 series instead of the 2.92 that I have right here. So if I go back to, yeah, I was looking for it. So this is the latest 2.92 release, and if I click on older versions, they have available all the way back to 1.85. So I thought, okay, let's try that. So if I click on that, I can get this download right here. Alright, so let me copy that link and I'll download that. Alright, and just as before, we'll add the execute permission to it. And so now back in the iDRAC KVM, yeah, let's try this. Let's see if this gets us past that error. So let me go ahead and minimize. There was mention in some of the things I was reading that you might want to try an even older version, but unfortunately I can't find anything older than 1.85. So we're just going to give this a try and see how it goes. Alright, so we have version 1.20 currently on the iDRAC module, and we're going to try to install version 1.85. So I'll enter Y for yes and hit enter. Well, it looks like I got disconnected, so maybe that's a good thing. That certainly didn't happen before. So I'll go ahead and click on that. I'm hoping that means that the iDRAC got updated and it's simply just restarting. So if that's the case, we're making a little bit of progress here, and maybe in the next round we can update to the latest. So I'm going to go ahead and try to refresh. This might actually take a while for it to reconnect. I don't know if it came through in the mic recording here, but I can hear from, I'm in the office right now and the lab is in a separate room. I heard the fan spin up, and that's typical of when the iDRAC gets reset and then it's spun back down, which is typical of the iDRAC basically coming back online. So I'm hoping that that means the iDRAC actually got updated and might be working. So I'm just going to wait for it to come back online, and hopefully on the same IP address. Alright, so we're making a little bit of progress. This definitely is a newer iDRAC. You can see that there's some cosmetic changes that happened to it versus what we saw earlier. So go ahead and log into this. Okay, so I think that update actually worked. You can see here firmware version is 1.85, which is what we were applying. So let's see if I can launch the console here. So I guess this is good news. Lesson learned, right? Like sometimes you can't update all the way to the latest and greatest. I do have that listed here. Not really sure why it won't accept. Okay, let's look at that error again. Jar source and JNLP file are not signed by same certificate. I wonder if it's caching something from the previous version. So let's see. Let me see if I can just clear all cached. Clear browsing data, cache images and files, cookies, browsing. Yeah, let's go ahead and just clear all this and see if that helps us any. I'll go ahead and log out as well. Okay, here. Well, alright, let's see if we can launch it now. Hoping this will now work. Still same problem. Alright guys, I'm back here. Did a little searching. Looks like this might be some sort of Java caching problem. I did clear the cache in my browser, but I think this is independent of that. So what I found is that there might be a way to clear any cached files in Java through the Java control applet. So let's go do that here. Okay, so temporary internet files. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so yeah, definitely there are some iDRAC related things here that might be cached. So let's go ahead and let's see, can I clear this from, okay, delete files. Alright, let's see if we can trace logs, install applications and applets. Yeah, let's go ahead and delete all that. Okay, let's see if I do view now. Okay, nothing is left here. Right, deleted. Okay. So now let's try this Java KVM again. Alright, this looks more promising. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so yeah, that took care of that. Alright, so a couple of lessons learned along the way today. Running into a lot of issues here, more than I had expected, but hey, we learn as we go. And so hopefully I'm gonna keep this in the video. I know this is kind of tedious, but I'm hoping that whoever is watching this might actually benefit from the things I'm kind of figuring out as I go today. Alright, so we got it to 1.85. Now let's see if we can actually upgrade it all the way to the next version, which is 2.92. Alright, fingers crossed, guys. Let's see if this works. And by the way, there are some scary sounding security fixes in this, so I do highly recommend that you guys update your iDRAC, considering that it has full control of your server. It's not good to leave it around with some of these vulnerabilities. Like, I think the buffer overflow issues, that's definitely not good. Multiple buffer overflow issues, allows remote attacker to execute arbitrary code. Yeah, this is all very, very bad security issues. So make sure you find a way to get your iDRAC updated. Alright, let's see. Fingers crossed, guys. Let's see if this works now. Alright guys, looks like we got disconnected again just like before, so that's probably a good sign, because the last time we tried to do this didn't do that and gave us that other error. So I'm hoping this means we actually get to the iDRAC 2.92. So I'm going to give this a little bit because it's going to take a while for that iDRAC to come back online, and I'll go ahead and click OK here, but I'll probably cut forward in the video until to the point where it comes back online. Alright guys, let's see if we can reconnect to the iDRAC. Alright, let's log in here. Yes, there we go. 2.92 build 05. Alright, so we finally got the iDRAC fully updated to the latest version by doing that intermediate update to 1.85. So anyway, I'm really glad that finally went through. I've been stuck trying to figure this part out for about 2 hours today. So you guys won't notice it in the video because I'll probably skip a lot of the things. But yeah, I'm really hoping that you guys, well, whoever might be watching this will benefit from this. But yeah, if you're having same problems trying to update the iDRAC, definitely try updating to an intermediate version like 1.85 first, and then doing the update to the latest version as a second step. Alright, let's go ahead and launch the console, and we'll go ahead and start all the other updates, because I really want to get this machine fully updated and ready to go, because I'm actually really excited to tell you guys about the storage opportunities here. Now, I know there's only one real PCI slot in there, that integrated slot, and I've got something that I think would be really neat, and I want to show you guys that. So I want to get past this video so I can get to that part. Alright, this is awesome. This is great. Okay, so iDRAC is now fully updated. Let's go back out here. And alright, so earlier I think there was a point in time where I tried to run the BMC update, and by the way, I found out that that's an issue with the bash shell being more POSIX compliant, and apparently the Dell's script isn't. So we're gonna have to find some other way around that. So I'm not gonna worry about that right now. Let's just go ahead and let's do the lifecycle controller. Alright, so let's see if we can apply the lifecycle controller, because earlier on this screen I see that the lifecycle controller firmware is at 1.3016 and the latest we have right now is 1.754. So let's go ahead and try to do this one. Now, I remember this one giving me a problem in that last series with the R410 where I basically had to apply it a second time for it to take. Let's see what happens this time. Whoa, okay, inventory failure. Cannot create session. iDRAC is currently unable to process the request because of another task. Okay. Wait 30 minutes and retry your request. Oh my god. That's a very long time. Reboot the system, press F10, select exit and reboot from unified server and retry your request. Or you can reboot the system, press Ctrl E, select system services, then change cancel system services to yes, which will close the pending task. Then press enter at the warning message. Oh wow, okay, so looks like we need to do something else, but you know what, alright, let's move on. Let's try to do what we can while we're still online here. So I know I can't do the BMC. What are the diags? Okay, diagnostic application. Let's try this. I kind of wonder if there's that thing going on, if all the firmware updates are gonna not work at this point. Well, okay, seems to be doing something. Okie dokie. Looks like we have currently installed 5130A0, and the version that we have in this package is 1562A0. So I'll enter Y for yes, and let's hope that this works. Aw, man, update failure. Okay, same error as before. So this looks like I'm going to have to do what they want me to do, which is either wait 30 minutes or reboot the system. Alright, let's try. Jeez. Alright, I hit F10 and hopefully we'll get in there. Alright, so we got this installing new USC features. This may take up to 3 minutes. Oh my goodness. Why does everything take so long? Okay, so we are now in the Unified Server Configurator, and I believe it said do this exit and reboot, right? And then the mouse is not really syncing up correctly. I don't know if that shows in the recording here, but okay, let's try this. Exit. Yeah, come on, move mouse. There you go. Alright guys, we're booted up. Alright, so I know the BMC again is not going to work on the current version of Bash I have on this CentOS 7 installation. Let's see if we can do the lifecycle control, since that was the one we were originally trying to do. Alright, let's try this one now. This looks a little bit better. Let's hit Y and enter and see how this goes. Alright, looks like the iDRAC got reset again. So I'm going to go ahead, I don't think this is working right now, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And let's refresh the iDRAC interface. Yeah, looks like I logged out. Let's log back in. Alright, so lifecycle controller is now at 1754. So that looks like it completed successfully. There we go. Alright, so that completed successfully. Let's now go ahead with some of the other things. So let's try this diags stuff again. Alright, so I'll enter Y for yes to go ahead with this update. Let's see if this works. Alright, that looks like that update succeeded. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Let's do the driver for OS deployment. I think these updates are mostly for the stuff that goes into the lifecycle controller and the system services. So they're not really that important perhaps, but just for the sake of having everything updated, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so looks like we don't have any version of this currently installed. I'll just hit Y to move ahead and go ahead and install this. Alright, so that looked like it updated successfully. Great, so let's see what else do we have. The network. Okay, so it's the network firmware and the BMC, and the BMC we're going to figure out separately. So let's go ahead and do this one. Alright, that was pretty quick. Looks like we need to reboot the system now, and that's really the only firmwares we can apply at the moment until I figure out what to do about the BMC firmware. So I'll go ahead and say yes here. Alright guys, so in the video you guys are probably going to see this segment just a few seconds after I finish updating all the other firmwares successfully. In real time it's actually been about a day since then, and so I've spent quite a bit of time on and off trying to figure out how to get this last BMC firmware to apply, and unfortunately nothing's worked. I did record all the different things I did that failed, but I don't really think I'm going to include those in this video because I think this is going to be a fairly long video anyway, and I'm not sure that's going to add much value. So unfortunately it's come to a point where I don't think I'm going to bother trying to get this BMC firmware to apply, and part of that is that I think there's not a whole lot of value. So this is the BMC that's native on the motherboard, and it's only really used if you don't have iDRAC. Once you have the iDRAC modules, they kind of take over control of the BMC functions. So since we do have iDRAC and I'm not running this server without the iDRAC stuff, this firmware is essentially just kind of, you know, a formality versus actually being kind of functionally useful. So I don't really want to spend too much more time on this. I'd like to get this video out so that I can move on to other more exciting things about the server than just applying firmwares updates. So, but anyway, just to give you, because I'm not going to include all the video I recorded for the last day on all the different things I tried to get this thing to work. I will just at least describe some of the things I tried that I found people mention online. So one of the first things I tried was to extract the contents of the .bin file that you see in front of you right now, and Inside there's a program, I believe it's called BMC something, FWTL or something like that. Basically, it's the program that actually applies the firmware, and under the payload subdirectory is the actual firmware. I tried running that independently, and it complained about some missing libraries, and which I don't find within the contents of that package. And I think there's some RPMs in there too. So I think the way Dell does this actually is that I think they install some stuff during the firmware update, apply the update, and uninstall some stuff, which is really kind of strange. So anyway, I'm not going to go figure that part out to make that work. So if you guys have been paying attention, you'll notice on my desktop here this new icon, Dell Repository Manager 3.30. I actually thought, okay, let me try doing it that way. So with Dell Repository Manager, this is something, it's kind of a clunky tool. I can see where, like, if you kind of figure out all its quirks, you can get used to it, and it works. I've been trying to avoid it, but this time around I thought, okay, well, let me try this. This for sure, this should work, and it didn't. But basically, Dell Repository Manager allows you to download and create repositories of all the updates for any particular model server, and then you can there's a plugin that allows you to create a bootable ISO that is able to execute all of those updates. So I thought, okay, for sure, like I could just use that and create a bootable ISO for the R410, and then apply the updates that way through virtual media. Unfortunately, that didn't work either. It turns out Dell Repository Manager somehow doesn't recognize this BMC firmware, this particular firmware, as part of the repository. I don't know why. I downloaded everything for the R410, and that was not included. So anyway, now actually, if you guys know about this tool and would like me to make some videos about it, I can do that on a separate video. I just don't want to include that in this video. But leave a comment in this video. Let me know, and if that's something of interest, I'll be happy to create a video to show you guys how to install this and set it up and so on. There's some quirks about it where it doesn't always do what you think it's going to do, but there's also, because the 11th gen servers and older are now completely end of life by Dell. Dell's dropped support for a lot of these things. So even trying to get the firmware for the R410, I had to go switch catalogs. There's these things called catalogs in that tool. I had to switch catalogs to an older version that still supported the 11th gen stuff, and so there's some things in there that I could show you guys how to do. It also might be an interesting way to update firmwares I guess in a different way with a bootable ISO in the future. It's something that I'm not really fond of this tool, and I've kind of been avoiding using it, but in this case I just thought, okay, I'll give it a try, and it still didn't help me. But if you guys are interested, let me know. I'll be happy to make a video, show you guys how to install it, how to set it up, how to get to the old catalog so you can work on older generation Dell machines with it, because anything older than the 11th gen and older are now not in that tool by default. But there is a way to pull up the old catalog and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, so I tried that didn't work. What else did I try? I think those are the two main things, but short of actually installing like an old Rel 6 or something like that, I just at some point I just felt like this wasn't really worth all the effort anymore. Okay, so anyway, if you guys, by the way, if anybody else who's watching this says, hey, I know an easy way to get that thing going, please educate me. Share something with us in the comments of this video, so that maybe next time around or after this video I can go do that or whatever. But like I said, this is just the BMC firmware for the native BMC on the motherboard, which is overridden by the iDRAC when you have the iDRAC. So it's not really functionally relevant at this point, unless somebody removes the iDRAC from that server. Then maybe this BMC will matter. But anyway, so that said, I'm basically going to say I'm done here, and I'm going to move on to the next part where we're going to reset the NVRAM for the BIOS and just kind of wrap this video up. All right. So anyway, I just want to let you guys know that yeah, so anyway, all right, let's move on to the next segment.
Alright guys, so I'm booting up this machine. We're going to get in the BIOS screen by hitting F2. Did I catch it? Yep, there we go. Entering system setup. So we'll just wait for this thing to finish posting, and then it'll go into the BIOS setup screen. Alright, so once we're in the BIOS setup screen, I basically want to set everything here to factory defaults. And the way to do that, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the R710. There's also another way to do this via jumper on the motherboard, but this I find to be easier. So basically, you have to make sure that all the lock keys are on. So I already have num lock on, right? So we get scroll lock, and then we also get caps lock. So you see all three lock keys are enabled. And then over here, basically hold Alt, E, and then F, and then when you hit B, it's going to reboot. So watch this. Hit B, and there it goes. And machine shuts off. So that's going to do an NVRAM reset. That means all the settings for the BIOS are going to be cleared out, and it's going to basically just have factory defaults. Alright, system is now booting back up. See the prompt there, holding down F2 right now. I'm going to be entering the system setup. Yeah, you'll see this is going to take a long time, and it's primarily because of the memory testing that it does by default. So we're going to turn that off just to speed this up. Alright, so we're in here now. The system clock looks like that's perhaps UTC time. I'm not really sure. Alright, anyway, memory settings. Let's turn off this system memory testing. Alright, whoa. Alright, anything else? No. Okay, processor settings. I don't really know why my screen is flickering on and off like that, but are we going to use this for virtualization? Maybe. I don't really think it's well suited for that, but we'll turn that on anyway. And anything else is not needed. SATA settings. I believe the yeah, I think the optical drive is on that port, or is it not? I don't know. I don't really care at this point. Okay, boot settings. Yeah, let's definitely change this up. Not going to boot off of that. Let's see. Definitely boot the USB first, and we will emulate hard drive. So yeah. Oh, you know what? The optical drive is not here. So yeah, you know what? I bet that's because this is off right now. Because I believe it's connected to port E. Alright, so that should turn that back on later on. Integrated devices, anything in here? You know what? Let's disable Pixie booting off of the NICs. No need for that. Embedded server, well, we'll just leave that alone. Power management. Active power control. Not performance. You know, I'm going to set it to OS control. Okay. And yeah, or you know what? I don't know. Let's see. System. Can we change this? Minimum memory power and performance. What should we do here? Should I just... I don't want max because that's going to send all the fans like screaming. OS control usually just lets the operating system take care of that. Or active power controller. So I think that's where you let the motherboard and the iDRAC and stuff like that manage the power management and fan performance. Let's go with that. Alright, so that's it. And we'll save changes. And it's going to shut off. And that's pretty much it for this. I'll turn that off now. So yeah, it's going to power back on. But anyway, this pretty much concludes this video. We've got the hardware set up, we've got the iDRAC modules, Enterprise and Express installed and working. We've got almost all the firmwares updated other than that onboard BMC one, which is kind of still a mystery to me. I guess I could, you know, if I was desperate enough, I'd go find an old CD or DVD of the Enterprise 6 Linux and maybe do it that way, but I just didn't seem like it would be worth that much effort. We've got everything factory reset, other than the settings that I actually want, right? So that's kind of good. So anyway, this concludes kind of this first video where I'm just setting this up to get this kind of in, you know, kind of a default working order. The next video we're going to talk about the storage subsystem, and there's a couple options with this machine. Now, you saw in some of the post screens and stuff like that there is a SAS1 controller in here, and I actually have some hard drives. If you guys have been paying attention, there's actually some hard drives in here already. They're just for testing, but there's a couple of surprises I might have for you with that SAS1 controller. And I'm also going to show you how to get a SAS2 controller in here in the next video. So we're going to get into all that regarding the storage subsystem in the next video. And so stay tuned for that. And then afterwards, you know, we're going to look into maybe doing some mock setups of this as either kind of a NAS, maybe with FreeNAS or something like that. And then maybe thinking about how to set this up as a storage controller head. So this is one kind of interesting option, is that I think this machine makes for a great starter NAS because it's got 4 bays, 3.5-inch bays, and it's, you know, relatively small form factor. So and it's just, you know, kind of overall a nice starter machine if you don't need a lot of storage, and you can get by with 4 hard drives in your NAS. So now keep in mind, today we've got like, you know, 12, 16 terabyte, 14 terabyte hard drives. So, you know, you could still get a significant amount of storage here. So, so I think this makes a good starter NAS, but then there's also the possibility of expanding from this and making this just your NAS head, your controller head, and attaching this to another JBOD chassis to run a disk shelf in order to expand your storage capacity. So I want to maybe explore some of those possibilities with this machine. But anyway, stay tuned for the next video when we talk about the storage subsystem. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and if it was helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this from me. All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye.